and welcome to this panel discussion on inspiring inclusive advancement and shattering the glass ceiling. So we've had a couple of very interesting sessions this morning on inspiring, attracting talent and of course retaining talent. But that's really just half the job well begin. This session will be focusing on how we can enable women to grow and achieve their full potential into senior management and leadership roles in this discussion. So please join me now in welcoming our distinguished panelists onto the stage. We've got Pooja Sehgal Mehtani, General Counsel from Sun Life Global Solutions. As the General Counsel, Pooja is responsible for legal and corporate affairs at Sun Life Global Solutions. She also heads the knowledge services vertical, providing legal services to various geographies. And she is hugely focused on corporate governance and is a key contributor to organizational strategy and the corporate decision-making teams. Welcome, Pooja. We've got Veena Rao with us, SVP and Global Head of Corporate Lending from Finastra. Veena comes with over 25 years of experience in the financial services and banking technology space. Veena started her career with India's leading private sector bank, ICICI, working in diverse areas across project finance, corporate banking, forex treasury, and relationship banking. At Finastra, Veena holds end-to-end accountability for the corporate lending business, including product engineering, services, and support. We also have with us Harsha Bhosale, Diversity Recruiting Leader, Japan and Asia Pacific at Oracle India. Harsha's career has spanned multiple leadership roles with organizations like Ernst & Young, Caterpillar, and Accenture in inclusion and diversity, HR strategy, leadership development, and more. Harsha currently leads diversity recruitment for Asia Pacific and Japan regions at Oracle, and she's a strong proponent of the impact and power of DEI at the workplace. We also have with us today Sherine John, Vice President, Credit Leader, India from Synchrony. Sherine is a seasoned management consultant specializing in delivering cutting-edge analytics and data science solutions to prominent clients in the financial services sector. Her experience spans 5 continents and diverse business models within the global financial services industry. Currently, she oversees credit, fraud risk, and loss mitigation, orchestrating a nearly 170-member team across the globe. So welcome once again, ladies, and thank you for joining us today on the panel to share your experiences and perspectives. So they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Personally, I think numbers speak more. So let's start with some numbers that are perhaps really hard-hitting, right? According to the latest Women at the Workplace report by McKinsey, which was out last December, early Jan, we see around 36% of women in senior manager, director level roles, 33% in VP roles and senior VP roles, and this further drops to 28% in C-suite roles at the global level. In India, Inc., I think the reality is a lot bleaker. In fact, yesterday's ET article on women in senior management and middle management positions at the workplace was talking about a shrinking talent pool where we're looking at 26% women in junior management, 18% in middle management, 13% in senior management, and just about 10% at the CXO level in board roles. So depending on the source and the study, these statistics could vary a little bit, right? But the writing on the wall is clear. There's a huge leaky pipeline and the broken rung that we spoke about earlier in the panel discussions today. What we need to look at is how we can enable more and more women to successfully sustain and advance in their careers and what we need to do about it. And the issue is very complex and very nuanced because like I said earlier, the broken rung theory is real. However much we can talk about being more ambitious and being more modern and being more all-embracing in our approach and perspective, the motherhood conundrum is real. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon because we do want to be ambitious for ourselves, but I think we also want to be equally committed to our loved ones. The caregiver's dilemma is also real, right? And then there are the workplace realities. There is the obvious discrimination. There's the unspoken subtle bias that creeps in for various reasons. We were talking about this earlier, in fact, Pooja and I with Neha. There is also the lack of sufficient role models, access to role models, access to sponsors, and access to the right mentors who can help us navigate the higher echelons of the workplace, right? And then, of course, pay parity. There's been enough that's been said and spoken about that. And the constant tightrope that I think a lot of women still continue to walk between their professional interests and their personal commitments. So 40 minutes is probably not going to be sufficient to cover all of these issues, but we will take a deeper look at some of them at least that we've discovered in the last few days a lot of us are passionate about. Right, so we'll dive into the questions. So to begin with, Sherine and Harsha, we'll probably start with you all. How can organizations ensure that their promotion and advancement processes through the middle and senior levels are fair and equitable for all employees concerned? Would you like to go first?
Sure. So, and thank you for actually bringing in all those numbers, because those are really eye-openers, and I'm sure none of us are unknown to those facts, right? First of all, I think we spoke about, and we hear about this glass ceiling so many times. Is it a myth or is it true? I think, and again, this I think comes every single day and every single time we speak, but I will say what I feel about it. It is pretty much a metaphor, right? That we create, and it is, and I must say this is like the great saying by Sadhguru that I read every single day, that nothing is a problem, everything is a possibility. That's what it is, right? And that's where it begins, that it is a metaphor, and that's where we see through. So that means a possibility that we see beyond, and which is possible, and which is made possible by many organizations today. And I'm very glad that I work for one such organization. And I must tell you that policies, processes can be created, can be recreated, because we are working in such a dynamic organization, dynamic world, which is changing every day. And all the numbers that you spoke about are going to change in a much positive sense, because we are working in a world where the number of women CEOs is going to change rapidly. The number of women grown businesses are going to grow rapidly. The number of women who are going to take leadership roles is going to grow rapidly. Why only women? The way we are going to accept people is going to change rapidly, right? So that's the reason why, if I have to go back to the specific part that you asked me, the kind of processes and programs that are being run, especially in organizations today, start really from the mindset that I spoke about. The mindset is basically, what are we thinking and what the leadership should be thinking. The main storyteller of the organization, that is the CEO or the CFO or all the C's of the organizations that are talking about that story being told very strongly, then percolates down to the people. And when they tell that story, everybody listens to that story, tries to tell the same story to their people, and then that story becomes a reality.
So what you're essentially saying is, whatever the policies, leadership first needs to believe in it to be able to take it forward, right?
So they don't believe, it doesn't really happen. That's the first part.
Sherine, would you like to add a perspective?
I'd probably just take that conversation forward, right? When your leadership is committed, and they put it as their North Star, which is what I've seen in several organizations and across the world that I've worked with various organizations. Put it as a goal, because then that's what you pursue. Yes. I think it is a must-have and not a good-have thing. And I'd also want to clear the air on, one of the things that we keep hearing a lot about is, it's a diversity hiring. Someone got the job by virtue of their gender or their sexual orientation and so on and so forth. But, the bottom line is, perspectives are so important, and if we continue to grow people who are just like us, who don't think differently, who cannot, we'll all always end up having the same blind spots, and that's not going to help anyone grow. So I think it's also important that we have an innate sense that this isn't about upliftment of a certain gender or a certain, type of segment of population. Yeah. This is about bringing the best of every world together. So that belief and putting that out in the goal, and then putting specific measures. If we go about, hiring specifically for women, You know, that's because we want to put or bring that additional perspective, and we continue to do that every time we are in a recruitment drive, for instance.
Essentially, what we're saying is bring up DEI where, you know, right up at the top of the organizational objective where we've got sales numbers and revenue growth and all of that, right? So taking on from there and, you know, delving deeper into what Harsha touched upon, one, of course, are the processes and the policies, but the larger issue is about how do we have people imbibe that and live that through, which is actually, you know, the DNA or the culture of the organization, right? So how can organizations and leaders create a culture that enables more women to take on leadership positions? Pooja, would you like to start?
Thank you for its very pertinent question. And, you know, we've been discussing that, we've discussed about policies, we've discussed about leading by example, leadership owning what they want, set up goals and measure them. But another very important aspect that just I want to highlight is that, you know, we want to break the stereotypes, and every organization, according to their own nuances and perspectives, you need to work on changing the culture internally and extending it beyond work as well. So for us, what we've been focusing on is expanding the definition of diversity. Now, it's very nuanced because, you know, many of the times we've heard from our women employees that don't just curate programs specifically for us, because that's also, you know, creating another sort of exclusion. So what we've undertaken from the past few years is that we are expanding the definition of diversity beyond just gender, focusing on, you know, bringing in people with disabilities or special abilities into the system, expanding it to the LGBTQIA+ people as well. We've just started on that journey, and, you know, we do a lot of surveys internally and with our external partners as well, and we've received some very good insights where we got to know that there are people existing already in the system which we are not even aware about. Right, so how do you break stereotypes and move beyond just focusing on gender? Because that's also going to, you know, help you bring all of the organization together, all of the employees together, and then look at the issue beyond. Because underrepresentation is not just with gender, as you said, that till the time we are going to focus only on gender, although recognizing that the problem is still there.
Yes.
A lot of ground to be broken on that as well. But if you take everybody along and make your policies inclusive, because another aspect is that you can solve only as much within the organization until and unless, as you spoke about, that the main caregiving responsibilities are with women,
shared,
right? And how do you kind of extend it beyond your organizations by making your policies more inclusive and taking the men folk along, where you make them realize, like we've done, that we've extended our paternity leave from 10 days to a month, and you make them realize that you've also got to share responsibilities back home. Because I think that a societal change needs to be worked upon to be able to make a change within the organization.
Essentially what I think at the core of it we're trying to say is, you know, we need to really humanize our policies, right? It's not about men or women or gender anymore. But make sure everyone feels comfortable to be able to deliver well on their tasks, ask for their growth, but also, you know, be open enough about wanting to find that balance between what happens at the workplace and otherwise.
Everything is about a balance, right? And how do you strike that right kind of balance is all, it looks very easy.
Yes.
Seems very easy, but, you know, all of us have to get together to look at the larger problem, then only we'll be able to solve for it.
But I think that is where, you know, leadership modeling that behavior comes in so strongly, right? I was probably, this was in the very early days of my career, and, you know, I was a new mother, and I was a sales coordinator for the region, so I remember there were really lengthy hours, you know, spanning the APAC region to reporting into the US headquarters, etc. But the one thing that our country manager did, and he did it very consciously and openly, making sure we all saw it every day, was to check out of his cabin at 5 in the evening, right? Calling out to us, saying, you know, I'm going to take those calls later on, you know, from home, because I've got these personal things to attend to, and, you know, like ferry my son around in the evening. And I can't tell you how much confidence that gave me as a person to say, it's okay for me to get up and walk and finish the rest of it at home. You know, so I think so much of it depends on how our leaders model that behavior.
Yeah,
also,
because
right?
a lot has changed. If you just focus on how the regulations have changed, how the laws have changed. I mean, when I had my son, it was just 3 months of maternity leave. Right?
Yeah.
And now we have a lot more flexibilities and even provisions in law with support. But it's what you are actively searching for, what you are applying, and any amount of policy changes would not help if the mindset does not change.
Actually, yes. So taking on from there, I think the next thing that I want to bring up for discussion is what steps, that's as far as organizational policies and cultural nuances are concerned. But what steps can we take as individuals to advocate our own career advancements, right, in environments particularly where the proverbial glass ceiling still exists? And I know, Veena, this is a topic that's very close to your heart, so would you like to start on this?
Thank you so much for bringing this up. And I want to continue from where Pooja left off, and I think she used some very, very powerful words, which is changing the mindset, and this goes beyond the workplace. It definitely goes beyond the workplace because what I'm going to talk about is very controversial. I'm saying there is no glass ceiling. A lot of the glass ceiling we see is in our own minds. And that's all back to mindset and what she said earlier about seeing through the glass ceiling and looking at the possibility above. So I'm going to challenge that theory that there is a glass ceiling, and I think a lot of the glass ceiling comes from within our own mindsets. Yeah?
Yes.
And that goes back to sometimes the society we live in, the culture we are brought up in, the treatment we've had as children, as boys and girls at home, and even today as mothers, are we doing the right thing by our children?
Yes.
Are we continuing the trend of making our children grow up with inherent constraints, inherent inhibitions, gender stereotypes, a feeling of guilt as new mothers to get up at 5 o'clock, like you said? I did that myself, and my role model, my own boss, did that as well. She was a mother of two. She was doing incredibly well in the organization, but she had the courage to get up and model that behavior for us.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that comes from the way we are putting ourselves out there. As youngsters, of course, building up the courage to do that, and as we grow senior, modeling that for our next generation. So I think some of the most important things that hold us back as women are the two Gs, I would say, guilt and gender stereotypes. If we are able to leave that guilt behind, you make a choice to have a career. So always go with a plan B. I think plan B has been my back pocket mantra for my life entirely. And of course, societal stereotypes are difficult to break overnight. It's difficult. It takes a generation and multiple generations to come out of it. So yes, today we are still caregivers at home. We still take on a lot of the burden of making chapatis, looking after kids, their homework, their exams, etc. But once you make your choice, don't let guilt have a place in your life, because guilt is incredibly consuming of your RAM and your mindset. So guilt is one thing I would expect everybody or request everybody in the audience to leave behind as women. Second is break the gender stereotype. So when your next chance comes up for a promotion or there's a challenging assignment, don't let that inner voice hold you back. And as women, we all know there's a big inner voice running in our minds. So please break that inner voice. And it doesn't happen alone. So enlist support. Enlist your friends, your spouse. My spouse has been my best career mentor ever. So enlist the right mentors in your life, harvest your environment, and break those internal mindsets. That's what I would say as how we should approach that class.
And it's amazing how much support you receive if you're just vocal enough to ask for it, actually.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
Very often we don't speak up.
Right.
We think nobody's ready to give us support, but the first step is just putting your hand up.
And give others a lot of credit for how much they can support you. I think, well said. I want to continue this discussion with Pooja. You were earlier discussing about, agenting versus communal approaches that we typically kind of bring out, right? So do you want to kind of talk about that?
I find it very interesting. I mean, if you read about how a woman's brain works versus a man's, brain, and the complexities around it, and the agentic and the communal behaviors that we exhibit, we're wired in a certain way, both the genders. But I think the right balance would be somewhere in the middle.
Right.
For a woman to not just be communal, move towards agentic behaviors, and for men to also, and in fact, I would just like to allude to something that we celebrated International Men's Day, and we held a session specifically for men. And it was very interesting where, they delved deep into how a man's brain functions, how they process emotions, and how females process emotions is very different.
Right.
And also the approach to each and everything that comes to us and how we, undertake that. So a certain level of assertion, aggression, independence in the decisions, and being outcome oriented is very important. And I think, all of us are there on the spectrum, and we can very well balance it with compassion. And if you attain the right kind of balance, and as Veena, you said, it's just about our mental blocks.
Yes.
I like to take an example. I mean, it was somewhere in 2014. I was offered a position which was much beyond. I'm the General Counsel for Sun Life Global Solution. I had legal and secretarial. And at that point, in 2014, I was offered a role which was much beyond my legal arena. And I said, no, I'll not take it up, because I'm not experienced enough. If I look back, I don't know how, if that opportunity would have gotten to a male member, how would he have responded?
Yes.
They would have jumped up to take it up. So those mental blocks are in us. Now, there was nothing wrong in it. I thought I'm not experienced enough, why to take it up? And maybe I'll not be successful. But over the years, you learn that maybe there are certain mindsets, mental blocks that we live by, and we evaluate and analyze a lot, just thinking about those things and not take the right kind of decisions. So I think a lot of the women, it's there in their mind, and to overcome that and just not look at it. I have never looked at my journey, and I've never kind of, felt that, oh, I'm a woman, I have to behave a certain way. And that has really helped me to connect with colleagues across, be it men, women, and now much beyond that. So it's all there in the mind, and to be able to create the right kind of balance, to be able to see what situation you are in, what challenges lie ahead, and to own it up and just go in the right direction with, and seek help whenever required. We don't ask for it as well.
Yeah.
Whether it is home or in the organization, do we realize what kind of help we require? Like Veena, you said. And a lot of responsibility lies on us also to break the stereotypes. We sometimes assume responsibilities thinking that it's just on us. And that's where you were rightly talking about the guilt factor that comes in. So I think somewhere in the middle between agentic and communal is the right place.
Again, it's all about balance, like you said earlier, right? Okay, so I just want to quickly go around the panel and ask you all to share one example each, right? It could be either of a successful initiative or program that has helped you all break through the glass ceiling, or the impact that, let's say, a particular manager or a mentor has had on you all that's, kind of helped you embrace your full potential. So, Sherine, would you like to start?
I could go first. Actually, I'll probably just add on to one point that Pooja said when she talked about mental blocks. Whenever I post a job and we enlist 4 criteria for it, I see very less women applicants for that job because, they may be taking 3 of the 4 criteria, they think they're not qualified, they don't apply. Most of the men who apply, with due respect to all the men here, they take 1 or 2 boxes and they're like, oh, I'm all set, I can apply, I can pick up the rest. So I guess
I think there's a study on this as well, so it's been proven, right? So I think for the ladies out there, take a chance on yourselves.
Take a chance, yeah. And maybe somewhere down the line, we need women to know that if you meet 3 of the 4, you're probably way more qualified than a lot of other applicants who are coming. You don't know the other side of the story, and so great analysis, great way of assessing, but know the other part of the story as well. I think that would help. But yeah, just coming back to, what have we done, or what have I personally experienced, to be where I am today. I've definitely been blessed with great leaders in my organization, across the organizations that I've worked in, who were strong advocates of talent, who were strong advocates of building diverse perspectives. And to that extent, it never felt like a place where you're getting by virtue of an adverse action, or somebody needed you there to tick the box on a certain metric that organizations are trying to achieve with respect to diversity. You always felt that you were on an equal footing. So one is, of course, being blessed, but that just comes by virtue of, I guess, a stroke of luck. Besides that, I think what's really supported me is, very early on in my career, you realize that it's a journey that you have to navigate. It's not something that comes overnight. You don't get to let's say, a senior leadership level and then think about mentors and sponsors to cut into the executive level. It is a journey that has to start from inception. So a conscious decision and having a runway in your mind in terms of what is it that we are trying to achieve. It's one of my favorite questions that I ask people. Where do you want to be in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years from now? Short-term, long-term goals. A lot of people are very unclear about that. And hand on heart, that's really the problem. If we know where we want to be, what are our strengths, what are the development areas to navigate the trajectory, more often than not, we find the support system we need to navigate the trajectory. The challenge is we don't know. And so, to everyone out here and to, every other person that I interact with, I generally tell them, have a vision for yourself, then see what the gaps are to realize that vision, chart out a roadmap, figure out what's needed. And as we all said, ask for what you believe you deserve. Because again, there's no harm in asking for what you believe. Whether you get it or not, that's probably a separate topic. But not even asking on the basis of assumptions is not done. So one, have your vision in place. And in order to bridge that gap, there could be a variety of things, mentorship, sponsorship, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit more in detail on that. We'll talk about that in a bit more. But again, find out if these are technical trainings, if these are leadership trainings, if this is soft skills trainings, whatever it is. Believe me, if you raise your hand, there is a lot of support available out there. I guess the challenge is one of not knowing what we want to do and then just holding ourselves back. So
Thanks,
for once in life, I think not holding back is a good idea.
Thanks, Shireen. Veena, any project or person who's really kind of...
Yeah, I think there are two things. I'll be able to answer one from a organizational perspective, what's worked for our organization, and second, personally, taking forward from where I was finding a lot of parallels as she spoke, so it was very heartening to hear that. So first, I think from an organization perspective, we all know in the corporate space, what is not measured does not get done.
Yeah.
Most often, right? Hand on heart, that's what happens. You have sales numbers, you have revenue targets, you have cost targets, and what gets measured gets done. So as an organization, I think Finastra has been extremely inclusive in its workplace culture, and it starts from the top. Like you said, it has to come from the top. So we have an incredibly conscious CEO, and when he took on as a CEO, he put it out there saying, today we are running in the 30s in terms of diversity on gender. Of course, like you said, there are many dimensions to gender and other aspects of diversity, but he put his hand on his heart and said, we are going to be 50-50 by 2030. And that's become a mantra across the organization, and we've already quickly moved to 40% now, very close to 40%, and we're targeting for 50% gender diversity in 2030.
Super.
So it's fantastic, and now that drives all of our organizations' hiring policies, so whether it's attracting talent, developing talent, or retaining talent, that just cuts through the entire chain. So that's the organizational, the part, that example that I wanted to mention. The second is, I think the important aspect for many of us as women, when we are younger, we are kind of expecting careers will happen to us by accident. We are walking around thinking, oh, I've got my qualification, I've got my job, and somebody there, ideally a boss, will take care of my career. Believe me, bosses don't take care of your careers, they're busy taking care of their own. So if you want a great career, it doesn't happen by accident. You've got to make it deliberate, almost like a project. And every 3 years, you've got to have a new project. If you don't put that 3-year horizon, you will sit there very comfortable in your comfort zone and never break it, and you will not move to the next level. So like she said, aspire, create your vision, have the guts to work on that vision, get the skills, whatever you need, learn, study, get skills, whatever you need, and then execute. So aspire, educate, and execute on a 3-year model. And if you put a 3-year model, you will probably get to it in year 4 or year 5. And it doesn't stop in the first iteration. This has to be a cycle of at least 6 iterations in a typical 25, 30-year career. That's my mantra for getting to where you want to get.
Super.
I think my example is an amalgamation of a personal and a professional story. So one of the organizations that I worked for, I was a reverse mentor to one of the executives. and this organization is obviously very, very big, basically the #1 manufacturing organization in the world. But out there, I sort of personally underestimated the impact that I could create through this executive. And again, this particular program that was being created was through the high potential women of the organization globally, who were assigned as reverse mentors to the executives in the organization. And these executives were reporting to the CEO, right? And when they showed this particular program, I thought that what could we actually do as an impact, right? That was my first thought. Now, that itself was wrong for me, right, to think like that. Now the thing was, what impact this particular program created was amazing for me personally, and I am speaking about this impact today, and that has a lasting impact on me personally, even today, on my career, on the way I think, the way I behave, and the way I always keep talking about it. Now, the thing was, I was able to create a women in leadership program for that organization that is still lasting and will last for the next many years, right? And I was leading that program globally for that organization. That was the impact that was created, and this executive was a committed executive. That was also another thing that I spoke about. Now, these are the kind of things that we do. We underestimate ourselves, that the kind of impact that we could potentially create. And what was that? The feedback that we could provide on the ground, and that could be heard by somebody that impactful, and what could they do with that feedback? So basically, if we are not outspoken, if we do not deliver the word to the right person at the right time, and what could basically happen with that? If we are just going to look at the glass ceiling, thinking what could happen, we are just going to sit out there and not do anything about it.
So essentially, watch out for those opportunities and
Yes.
grab them when they come your way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So this was an example for me. And the second thing that I quickly want to say is that we all spoke about, some of us feel that we are privileged. I think we have a support system at home. That's why we are able to navigate the career. But I will go and say this, absolutely, we should not feel privileged, because we are living in a world where we are helping each other. The other party, whoever, any gender, should not feel privileged. We are all helping each other navigate the career. That's it. None of us should feel privileged. That's about it. That is the attitude with which we should be navigating our life. And that's the world that we are getting into. I think that's what it is.
Super. Thank you, Pooja. Your thoughts, please.
Go back 23 years is when I started my career, and so I'm a CS and a lawyer. And I was hired in an organization as a CS and to set up the legal department on the basis of whatever existed in the head office. And 6 months, 5 months into the system, I was doing all of the corporate affairs and corporate secretarial work. And there comes the time when the probation period was ending, and I was to be made a permanent employee. And the managing director and the CEO, he calls me and he says that, how are you feeling? How's been your experience? Because I was the youngest member in the management committee because of my role. And I said, I'm okay, I'm good, but there's one problem that I have. I'm setting up the legal department. That's going to take some time, and because of the overlap, and there was a gap, and gap as in the time it was taking was not from here, but because of the head offices and the responsibilities. And while I'm delivering on my corporate secretarial and corporate affairs responsibilities, there's some time left each day in my role where I'm not occupied. And in that time, I am being asked by the CFO to work on something that I'm not interested in. It's something in accounting which I was really not interested in. And I have to do that, and I'm not happy about it, because I'd rather spend time researching in legal. How will I set it up when it comes to the fore? So he said, don't do it. Sit idle. Read what you have to read. but don't do it, that's not your work. And I said, but then what do I do? Because I'll be challenged. He said, no, I'll take care of it. So 2 points. One, I had allies from the very beginning. And look at the impact that it would have had on me at that point of time when I started the career. Another thing is I had the courage at the right moment to speak about what I was going through.
Yeah, and not many of us would have done that. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing is that, had I just thought, I have idle time, why not do this? But that was something that I was not interested in. And that would have, created dissatisfaction in what I had been doing. And I think I spoke at the right time, asked for the right thing, and I went on to establish the legal department and quite successfully in that organization. So I think that had a lasting impact.
Super. And in fact, I want to deliberate on this a little more because this brings us to this very important point of the kind of impact mentorship, allyship, and sponsorship can have, right, on our career growth and our aspirations. So, Veena, maybe you'd want to take the lead on this in terms of which of these is more important? Is it mentorship? Is it allyship? Is it sponsorship? And why?
Excellent. And maybe I'll give you my own perspective, not necessarily the textbook one.
Sure.
So I think mentorship is extremely critical for us because we don't really have too many role models to go with, especially as the younger generation enters the workforce. We have at least 5 women here, which is not bad at all. But in our own respective organizations, there are not too many role models. So mentorship, I think, is one powerful tool that as you enter the workforce, please actively seek out. If your organization is supportive and is already launching or running a mentorship program, please enroll for it and take it up straight away. Even if there is no such formal mentorship program, you have to seek out actively your own mentors. And those mentors don't necessarily need to be in the right traditional places. They don't need to be in your org hierarchy. They don't need to be in your function, in your business unit. You can find the right mentor. It has to be a good click of personality and the right level of person who can challenge you to see your own shortcomings and overcome them. So, like I said earlier, my best mentor has been my own spouse, which has been fantastic. I found a mentor very close to home. But apart from that, I have also sought out mentors in my professional arena very actively, right from, I think, from the time I was even not up to mid-management, even earlier than that, because I found that very powerful. And my mentor, whom I picked up about 15 years ago, is my mentor even today. He is long retired, and even today I feel the need for mentorship. When I'm in a trouble, when I'm in a dilemma and I have a big decision to make, whatever it is, I pick up the phone on a Sunday morning and I say, can I talk to you, sir?
Yeah.
So I think that is extremely powerful, especially in the junior to mid-level, mentorship is very critical. Coming to sponsorship, I think sponsorship becomes extremely critical as you become that mid to senior professional and you don't know where your next growth is going to come from. Because till then, you're fairly certain, okay, this is the rung, the next rung, and the next rung. But later, as you grow wider and more senior in the organization, your next opportunity is not very clear. And for you to pick up that next big opportunity, you need somebody like a sponsor who can see it from the top and say, you know what, she's always been in accounting or in finance or in legal or whatever, but this fantastic project here, an opportunity here or a challenge here, she can use 40% of her skills and it can easily come to the next 100% straight away, right? So you need a sponsor who's there in the room while you're not there to identify your innate talents and your ability and pick you up for that next role. So I think sponsorship is extremely critical as we grow a little more in the senior organization. And coming to allyship, I think as organizational leaders, as we go through the hierarchy, it's important for us to become allies and very strong vocal allies. And it could be small things like you're in a meeting and you have a junior female employee or whatever junior employee in the room. She is in that room because she has something to say, something to add, some point of view which is important. Now she may not have the courage or the voice to speak up when everybody else is talking. And it happens very often if it's a meeting of 10, 90% of the time, 8 are male in the room, right? And you might wait thinking, okay, let somebody else finish, and you want to be polite and you want to wait. But as a conscious leader, you need to spot who is not able to contribute, who has that idea at the tip of her tongue but not able to voice it. So as leaders, we have to start shining a light and finding those opportunities to give the chances to those people in the room who are not well represented. The second thing I think as allies we need to do is shine a light on what's good and have the courage to make that happen. So, for example, when things are going wrong or being unfair, have the voice to speak up. As senior leaders in the organization, your voice has a lot of weight. So if you see unfairness, inequity, wrong behavior, whatever it is, have the courage to speak up. And when things are going right, have the right courage to also shine a light on what's going well. So I think as allies, we have that role as senior leaders to.
And we were discussing this earlier, in fact, saying save others because, like the numbers spoke earlier, I think the disparity is still very huge. So save others the trouble of going through that long journey. If you can make it a little easier for somebody else to climb up that ladder, please do. Yeah. Would you like to add your thoughts to it, please?
And I would say that an ally is somebody, and I would start with the ally really, because when you need that eye of support and you look around in the room, that's the ally that you need. And I must tell you, that's where you start. You definitely need an ally. An ally or many allies. You need many allies, in fact. You need to navigate in the organization well. You need allies in various forms. I must say allies are the supremely important people in your career, in your life. In fact, personal allies are more important to start with in your personal support group. In fact, I have a very important thing that I draw and I keep it. It's called my networking map. It's called my map. Networking is one part of it.
Yeah.
And in that there is a personal support group, there is a career support group, and there is a professional support group. And that personal support group are all my allies who are in the core side and on the outer side, right? And then there is a professional support group where are my allies at work, the work friends. And then there is a career support group. Now I'll talk about the ones, the mentors, the ones that support you in, and I'm saying the ones who talk about what are the skills that you need to hone, the right skills that are required for you to move in the right direction. Essentially the right direction. And then there is one very famous saying that says that, and this is again, I'm not biased by gender, but I must say this, that women are over-mentored and under-sponsored, right?
Yes.
So I must say this, that if we have all the ingredients, but there is no plug that goes into the right place, then we are not exactly moving to the right next job, opportunity, or wherever that you want to reach. So we need a sponsor. And that sponsor, we need to identify in the very, very smart way. But the mentor can be your right person who might get you the right sponsor. So all three need to be there, for sure.
Absolutely. So ensure that you've got someone who's going to take your name in a room when you're not there, right, as a sponsor.
Yes.
And also ensure that you've got mentors or allies who are honest enough to hold up the mirror to your face,
Absolutely.
when the time comes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Super. Okay, so you spoke about networking. So Sherine, I want to start with you actually on this. How do we create more inclusive networking opportunities, that are more diverse and also specifically targeted for women, not necessarily modeled to, the stereotypical male archetypes or, the stereotypes of networking over drinks and golf and whatever else?
So again, different ways of thinking about this. Typically, now if we start, let's start top down. We're all employed with some organization. Some people are trying to return to work. We may have been employed previously. There are a lot of forums in social media that I think people should actively pursue. I think us getting into our shell is probably a biggest limiting factor. So just keep a track, figure out, be out there. I know social media has its own challenges too, but then you also have to make yourself visible. So LinkedIn's a great place, I think, to begin with at a very fundamental level. If you just keep your profiles updated, if you track what's going on, you have influencers who you're following, etc., it keeps your profile very active and visible. So at a very baseline level, that will help others reach out to you for either an opportunity or even for, it could be a job, it could be just opportunity to, sponsor or mentor someone else, for instance, depending on where you are on the career trajectory. And besides, as you said, the drinks and dinner networking, which is a very consulting way of doing things. Look, all of us at some stage, and I can speak from my experience at Synchrony, would have had an opportunity to be a part of a, let's say, a town hall, for example, or if a senior leader is visiting and a round table was organized and you were nominated. Sometimes I feel like I tick too many boxes and like, you know, there are 10 leaders visiting and I'm like, "No, can you nominate 30 people for each of these round tables?" We go ahead and do that, but we also get feedback that the participation was very low in the sense that people are there, physically there, but they don't speak, they don't ask a question, they just mark their attendance and come back. Believe me, that's a lost moment, lost opportunity. You may have opportunities to do skip level meetings with your boss's boss or with your HR business partner. Utilize those moments because that's exactly what will help your leaders with recall value. Don't undermine or underestimate these opportunities when you are called in for a meeting. And again, these are at very fundamental level things that if we, you know, just get them right, it'll really help us go and navigate this journey to a great extent. There can be other, you know, social support groups, etc., that we've spoken about. I mean, as an example, and I can speak again for my organization, we have a lot of diversity networks. We've got Disabled Plus Network, which is about, you know, neurodiverse or physically disabled people, you know, their network, women's network, and so on and so forth. So just actively participating in things that are outside of your core, especially in a day and age where work from home is now more the norm than an offbeat thing, will really help, because if we keep continuing being in our shell and not utilizing these opportunities to come out of the core and participate in you know, events that are sponsored by the company or roundtables or meetings,
Absolutely,
we'll
yeah.
just miss out on things. So I guess that's very important. And one more thing which I'd like to add on sponsorship, I think we've all talked a lot about its importance, its relevance, but please make sure that you find someone who has a seat at the table, as we said, and that person who has a seat at the table will invariably be a few levels above you. So do not shy away from proactively setting up one-on-one meetings on their diary. Everybody can spare a 30 minutes, even your CEO can. Just go ahead, set up that meeting and have that conversation. Trust me, it goes a very, very long way in recall value. I have been part of meetings with the C-suite, and they have exceptionally good recall value for maybe an analyst, a new joiner, an intern who actually reached out to them for a one-on-one conversation. So it doesn't have to be talking business strategy, it could just be about your personal life and experiences, but please go ahead and do that. These are little things that will really go a long way.
Thanks, Sherine. So I think we've got about 10 minutes left before the last round of questions. Pooja, what can we do as women to champion for more women in leadership positions specifically?
Okay, so I'd begin by saying that you receive what you seek, right? And whether it be women for women or seeking male allies or sponsors, I believe it's about building relationships. Not just at the time that you need help from somebody, but generally the way you operate in the entire ecosystem. Even when you don't have an agenda and you work on a relationship is what matters, because you never know where it's going to help you in the journey. So that's the approach at least I take when I you know, network with people. And I don't even say network, it's about building your own relationships and investing in them. You'll reap returns with whatever you invest.
No, but you also ensure that you're paying it forward. When
So the second aspect is that once anybody has gone through that journey, if we talk specifically about women being at a certain level, don't forget that you also have a responsibility to give it back to people. And probably we forget, you know, what we have gone through or the challenges that we would have encountered, the way we dealt with it. Of course, times have changed. Now there are different nuances and people would have different kinds of challenges. But even if we remember that, you know, we have a responsibility to at least share our journeys. If somebody could learn from it, or how we simply, you know, deal with our team members. How are we invested in their growth? And even beyond our teams. People should be able to look up to you. You should be approachable so that anybody, if has any problems, can come to you, talk about it. Or generally, if you just spend some time talking to people and building relationships, maybe you are helping somebody on the way, you never know. And that's also where it's very important to even, you know, inspire people to lead by example. Let people see that, you have something to share, and at least in my experience, people do reach out to you. And that's an opportunity where you can share back, with them how the journey has been. And not just look at there are definitely structured ways of mentoring, sponsorship, allies, but there definitely, it's there at the back of your mind that you have to contribute each and every day in some or the other way. I think that goes a long way.
And like she said, I think watch out for those people who probably need a little nudging, a little help, a little guidance, and mentor them accordingly.
Back to our mental blocks, maybe
Yes.
the way we dealt with it, and if we see somebody struggling, just walk up to that person, talk about it. Maybe something good is going to get out of that conversation.
Yeah. And I think the one thing is also, again, humanize it, because sharing your own personal experiences, a lot of the time as youngsters or people who are just starting off, I think we believe that they seem to have had it all figured out, which is not the case. So I think sharing the fact that you've also had to struggle a bit to figure it out and find your way around gives them that confidence.
Yeah,
right?
I always, go back to we as human beings, we thrive in communities always.
Yes.
And somewhere we're forgetting that nobody is going to succeed in silos. So seek help and make your own communities. And sharing is going to reap great benefits for yourself and for others.
Community as a starting point, but yes, absolutely. Okay, one last round of questions, before we end for the day. So, if you want to envision a future where, there is truly diverse leadership, it is a long journey, but most organizations are making a conscious effort towards it. So, if you want to envision a future where there's truly diverse leadership and equitable access to growth, can we quickly go around the table and talk about each of our 3 takeaways or 3 short phrases? Phrases, not longer sentences, please. I think you need to switch it on. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So the first one is leave your sticky floors behind. Don't let your inhibitions not let you progress. Challenge leadership archetypes. There are certain personalities we deem to be leader-like. Doesn't have to be the case. Everybody is a leader in the room. Believe in yourself and move forward. So I think those are probably an amalgamation.
Fantastic. Thank you. Veena?
So I'll try and put that as the ABCD of breaking the class ceiling. So first, A is be aware. Like I said, all of us have this inner voice which is constantly running in the background. So first, be aware of your internal limitations and overcome them. Second one is be bold. And I think that's the summary of everything you've heard so far. When the opportunities come by, when you're in trouble, when you need support, be bold and pick up your hand and ask for help. The third is C, which is be curious. As we go through our lives, we start thinking, oh, college education is done, and then maybe an exec MBA, and I've arrived in life, and I don't need to learn anymore. I think across industries today, unless you continuously learn and keep yourself relevant, and you continue to retain the curiosity you had 25 or 30 years ago, it's difficult to continue to thrive. So continue to be curious. And the last one is the most important, be deliberate about your career. Like I said, great careers don't happen by chance. You've got to be deliberate about it. So that's my ABCD.
Super, thank you. Harsha?
Yeah, I'll just say it. Yeah, challenge your limitations.
Yes.
That's first.
Yeah.
And then express yourself and accept everyone. I think if you do this much, you'll be able to do much more. That's all.
Fantastic, thank you. Pooja?
Continuing with what she said, we've recently embraced belonging at Sunlight Global Solutions. I see belonging as an outcome right now from our DI initiatives, but it should feed in as an input also to DI initiatives. And to that point, I think I would sum it up joining 3 phases, that your voice matters because we are in it together, and together we belong.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'd want to add to that. I think my 3 would be maybe be humble and balanced, but also be your biggest champion. The second would be dare to be different, because there are many routes to the top, so not necessarily the well-trodden path. And seek help, and I think you'll be amazed by how much support and help you'll get.
I love that. When you said there are many routes to the,
There are, right? Yeah, absolutely. Great. So thank you so much, ladies, for your time. I think safe to say that it is, not a pit stop that we can arrive at in terms of, enabling true diversity and inclusion, but rather a much longer marathon that requires probably organizational level policies, from a macro perspective, but I think from a micro day-to-day perspective, something that we must all very consciously, like you've all referred to, embrace and imbibe and really just walk the talk. Yeah? Evolve, yes. Super, thank you so much.